Hey guys, welcome back to Personal Injury Perspective. Today, we're talking about the Houston ding-dong ditch case, where an 11-year-old child tragically lost his life after a homeowner opened fire. From a criminal standpoint, this case appears to be headed towards a murder conviction. But here on this channel, I ask a different question. Will the family get justice in civil court? And the answer, sadly, is complicated. Let's talk about it. According to police reports, a group of kids were playing a game of Ding Dong Ditch, which is a doorbell ringing prank. A homeowner, Gonzalo Leon Jr., allegedly came out and shot at them. One bullet struck the child in the back, and he later died. Leon has been charged with murder. The police have already said this doesn't appear to be self-defense. So, the criminal side is moving forward. But let's shift to the civil side. The child's family has every right to bring a wrongful death lawsuit and a survival action under Texas law in a case like this. Wrongful death allows the parents to recover for the loss of their child. Survival allows the estate to step into the child's shoes and recover for his conscious pain and suffering. On paper, the damages here could be massive. We're talking millions of dollars. Loss of companionship, mental anguish, future lost earnings, medical bills, funeral expenses, and an 11-year-old that was in terror being shot. But a judgment is only half the story. The real question is, can that judgment be collected? Most people assume a homeowner's insurance policy is there to pay out when something terrible happens like this. And sometimes that's true. But here's the catch. Almost every homeowner's insurance policy has an exclusion for an intentional or criminal act. Shooting a child is the textbook definition of an intentional act. The insurer will almost certainly deny coverage, or at least try to. Even if the family sues and wins, the insurance company may still try to fight tooth and nail to avoid paying, arguing this is an intentional criminal act. And under Texas, that argument in many cases succeeds. That means the only source of money would be the shooter's personal assets. And that's where things get a little complicated. Here's where Texas law kicks in. Texas has one of the strongest, what they call homestead protections in the nation. Under Texas Property Code Section 41.001, if a property is the homeowner's primary residence and designated as a homestead, it is exempt from forced sale to satisfy a judgment. And that's actually not uncommon. That is how it is here in Florida. Translation, you can't take their house. You can't make them sell it. The family could get a multi-million-dollar judgment against the shooter, and the shooter, if he's not in jail, he could sit inside his home untouched, so long as the property is properly homesteaded. So what about other assets? Bank accounts, cars, rental properties, or land beyond the homestead. Yeah, I mean, sure, that stuff could potentially be seized, but in many cases, especially when somebody's headed to prison, there's not much there. And when it comes to wages, Texas law allows garnishment for child support, but not for general civil judgments like this one would be. Add prison to the equation, and there are no wages to garnish anyway. You'll hear a lot about this on my channel, particularly with shooting cases and in general with criminal cases involving murder. There's a defendant that the victim's family can pursue for civil justice, but as my law school professor Tony Baldwin said on the very first day of civil procedure class, nothing from nothing equals nothing. If the defendant does not have deep pockets, it is typically not worth pursuing a judgment. We call this an uncollectible defendant. So let's bring this back to the justice scale. If 10 means the family can recover full compensation and 1 means they'll likely recover nothing or very little, this case is a 1 or 2 out of 10. Why? Because even though liability is clear, the sources of recovery are empty. Insurance may be excluded, assets are protected, wages don't exist. And that's the brutal reality of the civil justice system. Sometimes, even when you can win in court, sometimes you can't collect a dime. I've seen this in cases play out throughout my career over the last 25 years, dozens of times. And that's why I always remind my viewers, civil justice isn't about just winning the case. It's about finding a path to actual recovery. Families in tragedies like this often walk away with heartbreak and a hollow judgment that can never be enforced. The shooter will almost certainly face criminal punishment, but civilly, the system may offer little relief in this case. And so on the channel's justice scale, the family tragically lands at 1 to 2. Justice in name only, and not in reality. But in closing, I do always like to give hope, and all too often I represent the underdog, so I always try to maintain optimism in these cases, and there is a chance that given the nature of this case being high profile and the magnitude of this loss, the loss of an 11-year-old, that even though the shooter's insurance has a potential defense of an intentional act, if the plaintiff's attorney can formulate an argument that the shooter was negligent or reckless, insurance could be triggered under the policy. Now, in looking at the property records, we see right here, this is a home that's around $300,000. Most homeowners' policies do not provide bodily injury coverage above the value of the home, which in this case is roughly $300,000, or at least on paper. Could be less than that. The bodily injury could be around that. If I'm an insurance adjuster, though, and I see an 11-year-old that's died, even if I can make the argument that this was intentional, given the news coverage and the magnitude of the loss, I might be bringing this to my upper management asking if we should just pay the limits on something like this, because $300,000 or less is too little for a child's life. And this happens more than you think. Even if $300,000 is not nearly enough to cover this loss, and the family does get that amount, that doesn't change anything on the justice scale. It's just not enough to cover the loss. This has been Personal Injury Perspective. If you found this breakdown helpful, follow along as we continue to look at whether victims in high-profile cases like this one can truly obtain justice. Be safe out there, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. I will see you on the next episode of Personal Injury Perspective.